me today on this special edition of the Edgar Ortega Radio Show is Doug Hotle, and he's here to tell us about a very special event coming up here this month. Doug, thank you for being here to talk about the Lone Star Rattlesnake Days.
Well, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, no. So, Doug, tell us, what is Lone Star Rattlesnake Days? What's that all about?
Well, Lone Star Rattlesnake Days, it is hosted by the Rattlesnake Preservation Trust. And the Rattlesnake Preservation Trust, we are an organization, we're dedicated to basically changing the way that people think about rattlesnakes. And that's through conservation, education, and naturally events like the Lone Star Rattlesnake Days. Lone Star Rattlesnake Days is coming up. It's going to be March 11th and 12th, and at the Dell Diamond Heritage Center in Round Rock, Texas. That's just outside of Austin, and it's basically a suburb of Austin. So if you're in Austin, it's not too hard to find. But it's a 2-day event, and what we do is we encourage people to come in and learn about rattlesnakes all throughout their range. We cover rattlesnakes basically from Canada all the way down to Venezuela. We kind of look at rattlesnakes all throughout their range, and it is a kind of an alternative to the traditional rattlesnake roundups that are held all kind of throughout the Midwest and the Southwest United States. The traditional come in and let's just kill rattlesnakes and skin them. And what we are is we're a no-kill, no-thrill. And come in and learn about rattlesnakes. We've got a huge selection exhibit of rattlesnakes on display for people to come and look at. And instead of the stupid stunts and the killing and skinning of rattlesnakes, we basically have people come in and we educate them what rattlesnakes are good for, their place in our ecosystem, some of the conservation issues that are going on, really kind of a full spectrum about rattlesnakes, anything you want to learn and anything you want to know, anything you don't want to know, come on out and check it out, and we'll be glad to talk with you.
Well, that sounds exciting. So so this was stemming from this was based out of the traditional roundups, and you guys are doing it differently. Of course, you mentioned it's a no-kill event. Also on the flyer, I see it says that one of the goals is to make learning about these animals fun and entertaining. What are some of the ways you guys are doing that?
Well, we've got activities for everybody. Whether you're a family and you just want to come out and learn about snakes in general, or whether you're a hardcore herpetologist, we have some of the finest herpetologists in the country on hand to come in and talk and give demonstrations about these. We've got activities for the kids. We've got snake extraction demonstrations put on by Jim and Kristen at the Kentucky Reptile Zoo. They do an amazing program of extracting from rattlesnakes. And unlike the traditional roundups, we actually use the venom, and it does go directly towards research and medications. So it's a great way to come out and see what that's all about, done in the right way in a clean and safe environment. And so we've got really something for everybody at these events.
Well, it sounds like fun. This is something families can come to?
Oh, yes. We definitely encourage families to come out, bring their kids. Kids will have a great time. We've got demonstrations for kids, everything from coloring pages on up to safety programs for the kids to learn how to, if you live in a rattlesnake area, how to play safely in your backyard and learn a little bit about where these animals are, why they are there, how to stay safe around them. So really, we kind of cover the full spectrum. And what we really want to point out is we're not the traditional rattlesnake roundups. We're an alternative to these types of events. What we want to do is we don't want to necessarily abolish these rattlesnake roundups, but we want to help them as well to change their format to a no-kill situation like many have done across the country, to where these communities that rely on the revenue generated by the traditional rattlesnake roundups, they can also come out, learn a different way to do it, preserve their integrity, preserve their culture, their way of life, and their revenue, economic stability for their communities, but learn a little bit different way to do it. We don't have to kill these animals in order to bring people out and really engage them in learning and dipping their feet into the waters of learning a little bit about rattlesnakes in general. So it's a good way to do it. It's just something for everybody.
Now, generally at the traditional roundups, I believe the snakes, they could be collected year round and stored. I mean, sometimes people bring them in by the bunches. Sometimes they're collected through gassing methods and other ways. Where are the snakes that you guys will have there? Where are those coming from?
All of ours come from different sources. These are all captive raised animals, captive born and raised animals. These come from private collections and from zoo collections. Some of the more rare species are brought in from different zoos. We have about 6 or 8 zoos that are on board with us now, AZA and ZAA accredited zoos. And they also help to bring out the collections of different types of rattlesnakes. So you can see a little bit of a variety of all the different species of rattlesnakes on hand. But all of these are captive rattlesnakes. They're brought in from captive collections, and they go right back to these captive collections once they're done. So there's no mass collecting like you see in the traditional rattlesnake roundups. All this is done through zoological and private collections.
Right. No, that's really interesting. It's great you guys are doing that. You mentioned before keeping the part of the culture. Of course, other places have been doing this for years, but of doing the traditional roundups. But you guys are showing them that they can still have these events. They can still bring in revenue, to fund the areas where they're held. But they don't have to do all the rounding up and killing of the animals almost in such a disrespectful way. Now, one of the goals of this event is to educate the public to help preserve the rattlesnakes there. Are these animals in danger of, or are they in decline due to the traditional practices?
Well, we see rattlesnakes declining really all throughout their range. And again, the rattlesnakes range from Canada on down to Venezuela. They're strictly a New World snake. But we do see the declines in a lot of rattlesnakes. And that's due to different reasons. The declines from these roundups, we do see declines in some areas due to this. And it's just a non-sustainable practice. When you're going out and collecting, across the United States for these roundups, hundreds of thousands of rattlesnakes every year for these traditional roundups, you're definitely putting a dent and a hardship on these populations. And again, it's a non-sustainable practice. So even the traditional roundups, they do understand that this is something that's not going to keep going for another 50 years. Their time is limited too, just based upon the decreasing number of rattlesnakes that they're able to get. And we want to show them that there's a way to do this sustainably and still protect the populations of rattlesnakes out there. So we're not vehemently opposed to the traditional rattlesnake roundups, but we are opposed to the methodology that they use in the way they collect these animals and the way they slaughter these animals and the non-sustainable practices that these traditional roundups kind of push. So there's something that, again, we're not an animal rights group. We don't want to bash anybody. We're not trying to outlaw rattlesnake roundups. We're just trying to show them that there's a more sustainable, more humane method of doing this and still generating the interest and the income that a lot of these communities like Sweetwater, Texas and others do depend on. So it's something that can be done. We're trying to change a culture, if you will. We're not trying to ban anything. We're just trying to change a culture and change the way, again, how people think about rattlesnakes, including our friends out there at the Rattlesnake Roundups.
Yeah, people don't usually have a soft spot for animals like these, do they? I mean, typically in the public's eye.
They don't. They get a bad reputation. Yeah. If we look at them throughout history, when we first came and we landed here on the shores, rattlesnakes were looked at a little bit differently. They were on our first battle flags, our Gadsden flags. Everybody's familiar with the "Don't Tread on Me" flags. And these snakes were looked at a little bit differently. However, over time, culture has changed. For a lot of these rattlesnake roundups that started way back in 1939, 1940, this has become a culture and a way of life for a lot of these communities. And they not only look at rattlesnakes with a kind of a disdain, but they also look at it as their main source of economic revenue coming into these communities. And some of these communities do depend upon these rattlesnake roundup events to generate money, and they do good things with this money through different charities and such. And again, we're not trying to outlaw or to banish these practices. We just want to show them that there's a different way to do it that's sustainable, and you can still bring in the money and you can still have these events, but let's just try not to kill so many rattlesnakes in the process.
Yeah, right, of course. And you talked about sustainability and in parts where these events are held at traditional roundups. It's part of their culture, obviously. But if the snakes decline further and further, they're not even gonna have their traditional roundups. Yeah.
Exactly, and we know through the years, through monitoring these events, these traditional roundups, that they're not bringing in as many snakes. They're not bringing in the large snakes. They're not bringing in the numbers that they traditionally did, and they're having to go out further and further and further to find these. If you look at an event like Sweetwater, Texas, they claim, well, all of our rattlesnakes are collected within a 50-mile radius. But if you go to these events and you start to look at some of the snakes in the snake pit and you're going, well, that's a prairie rattlesnake. That's not found anywhere near there. Yeah. Or that's this type of a rattlesnake. It kind of tells you that they are bringing in these snakes from a lot of other areas. So again, it's not a sustainable practice, and really you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot in the long run. Not only are you going to run out of rattlesnakes to have your event, but you also open yourself up to a crashing ecosystem that brings in things like the plague and hantavirus and other rodent-borne diseases, crop damage through rodents, and so on and so forth. So you have to look at it holistically of how these rattlesnakes balance out the ecosystem, not only balance your budget. So it's something that we are trying to work with some of these events to show them how they can sustain themselves and how they can do this in a responsible way well into the future.
That's great. It would be amazing if all the roundups did this sort of educational work that you guys are doing. Now, some of the things you want to do, of course, is preserve these animals. They're part of the ecosystem. They're important now in a lot of research. But why is it important that we respect these animals? I mean, typically you have these this mindset of fear. In Texas, of course, you have a lot of farmers, and they want to protect their livestock and things. But why is it important that we respect rattlesnakes? I mean, people say, oh, there's gopher snakes, there's other snakes, they take care of rodents too. So why rattlesnakes? Why should we care?
Well, they do. Certainly there are other predators on rodents, everything from, other snakes to owls to badgers to all of this. But each of these animals plays a specific role, has a specific niche in their ecosystem. A rattlesnake is no different. Now, what we want people to try to recognize is that rattlesnakes not only play a vital role in the balance of these ecosystems, but they're also an iconic animal. If you go to any truck stop, any place in the Southwest United States, and you're inundated with rattlesnake shot glasses, rattlesnake can openers, just a little bit of everything. So it's a part of our natural heritage that we want to preserve. So, rattlesnakes are a valuable thing, not only from an ecosystem standpoint, but also from a cultural standpoint. And it's just something we don't want to see vanish, and we don't want to see go away. We can say that, yeah, if we get rid of a rattlesnake in the area, that the gopher snakes and the rat snakes will come in and they'll do that. And that's not necessarily true, because when we have sympatric or snakes that live within the same area and even overlap microhabitats, you still have these specialists, and that's what a rattlesnake is. He's a specialist to do a specific type of hunting for a specific type of prey in a specific type of habitat. And that's something that some of the other snakes just aren't going to pick up on and aren't really going to fill that niche. So we do need these animals out there. And again, you touched on medical research. We're finding fascinating things with rattlesnake venoms, how these might work for different types of biomedical applications, life-saving medications to general emergency on-the-spot medications that could be used by paramedics and ambulance drivers. So we're seeing a lot of research really taking off in this field. And it's like anything here on the earth. It's tragic to find out that, wow, that really could have been useful in a lot of ways, but it's too bad it's gone already. So that's something we're trying to stave off before it's too late.
No, of course, I've spoken with several researchers that talk about reptile venoms, being the study of them being used to develop life-saving medications that are saving, I mean, possibly more people than are ever dying from rattlesnake bites. So every day, people's lives are
Sure.
saved because of research into these animals. And you know, the animals there in Texas, they may hold the key to the cure to some disease. I mean, there's an American species that could hold the cure for breast cancer and cancers. And
Right.
there's other things that are going on right now. So it would be a shame if we were to allow certain practices to continue. If someday, you know, that could save people's lives every day through research, and we're finding that out. It's great that you mentioned that. I was hoping you would.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, go ahead.
No, no, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Texas, you talk about spreading a message of education that includes a respect for wildlife, a respect for all the wildlife out there, and just keeping a balance of things. Now, Texas has had some issues recently trying to ban the practice of gassing, hasn't it?
Yes, yes, it has, and that's something that has been.
What is it?
I
First
don't
of all,
even want to say it's.
if somebody's never
Well,
heard of it.
gassing. Yeah, gassing is the practice. This is how many of these collectors that collect the snakes for these roundups go out and get these snakes. They go out early in the spring while the rattlesnakes are still in their dens. They pump gasoline or ammonia down into these den sites, down into these cracks and crevices to draw the rattlesnakes out. The rattlesnakes get a lung full of that. It's not necessarily the smell. It's more of the burning of the lungs that drive these snakes to the surface, and then they're collected. Unfortunately, there's 150 other types of species that live down and rely on these same cracks and crevices and hibernation spots that this gas fumes directly inhibit and directly affect as well. Everything from small insects to rodents to burrowing owls to, you know, some of these other species that we do find a little more endearing, and it's become a problem for those too. In Texas, this is, I don't want to say it's widespread, but it is used. It's a common practice for collecting these rattlesnakes for these roundups. And unfortunately, Texas has laws on the books that allow a certain amount of gasoline to be spilled on the ground and, as toxic under their toxic waste and toxic cleanup laws. And rattlesnake collecting, unfortunately, kind of falls under that. So politically and legally, it's a tough battle to go after. There's really no biologist. I can't think of a single biologist that I've ever talked to that hasn't said that these practices are harmful. Unfortunately, there are laws on the books, and you know how Texas is. You can always tell a Texan, you just can't tell them much. And these are the people that, they're going to stick by the laws, and legally we can still do this. But if we can turn the tide on how these rattlesnakes are used and that these rattlesnakes aren't killed at these events, that tends to really reduce and almost eliminate the need to go out and gas. So while we may not be able to fight the gassing laws outright, we can kind of mitigate those in other fashions. And if we can really change the way that these rattlesnake roundups operate, we can also really kind of affect a lot of these practices that are used that are not only non-sustainable for the rattlesnakes themselves, but are a threat to other species in the wild as well.
Right, it's a practice that's been going on, and hopefully, eventually, you guys will be able to do something so people become educated and understand the damage that practice does. If you're not sure what it does,
Right.
you could pour some gasoline on your lawn, see what happens, right? and that's
Exactly. Yeah. Nobody discounts the fact that pouring gasoline into the environment is a bad thing. It's just Texas is a big petroleum state. That's what they rely on. So in drilling for petroleum and in processing petroleum, again, they do allow a certain amount of spillage that is covered under the law, and that's up to around 250 gallons, which is nowhere what they use in these rattlesnake dens. So the practice of gassing is protected under that law. And again, it is something that really, even the people that go out and collect these snakes know for a fact that these practices are detrimental. But as long as it's still legally acceptable and legally allowed, it's going to continue. So again, if we can mitigate some of this through just general practices of how these roundups are conducted, and the philosophies and the methodologies of these rattlesnake roundups, we can start to reduce the impact of things like gassing and over-collecting and these types of things that are going on.
All right, Doug, well, you're coming at me with lots of facts, lots of good information. I mean, it's important to distinguish that you guys are coming at it, like you said, from a conservation standpoint. You guys are not animal rights groups trying to, end these other roundups. You guys just want people to understand the effects of the traditional methods of the roundups. So, I mean, you're coming at me with lots of great information. You're putting on this event that's educating the public, and you guys are doing real good work. How many times have you done this event?
This will be our third event through the Rattlesnake Preservation Trust, and every year we're gaining ground. We have more zoological institutions join us, other conservation groups, other biologists. We're getting the word out. We've been doing some work down in Mexico as well on educating down there. And so we're kind of spreading our tentacles in a lot of different directions. The Rattlesnake Preservation Trust we are a conservation group where our board consists of zoologists and private sector biologists. So we've got a nice spectrum of people that understand a lot of these different issues going on. And we delve into a little bit of everything, not just the rattlesnake. Lone Star Rattlesnake Days, but also conservation, supporting research, and other educational endeavors really all throughout the year. So while this is our main event, we are definitely staying active really all throughout the year. And I think it might be important to note that everybody on the board, everybody with the Rattlesnake Preservation Trust, we're all volunteers. Any of the money that we raise through events like this goes directly back into our conservation programs and our education programs. And nobody on the board takes a penny of it. Actually, most of us dump a lot of money every year into keeping this thing going and traveling around and educating people. So it's a nonprofit. We are definitely a nonprofit organization, and all of the money generated by these events goes right back directly back into our conservation programs.
Well, that's great. And, of course, people that travel and come and eat nearby are contributing to the city as well.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, Doug, that's great. It sounds like... Whoa, okay. It sounds like you guys have a lot of help. You guys got volunteers there. What about people that are there near you? Do you take more volunteers, or do you guys have all the help you need right now?
Well, we can always use volunteers. Our goal is to put on the best event that we possibly can, and the more people actively engaged in that, the better. And you can go to one of our websites directly on Facebook, the Rattlesnake Preservation Trust site, or the Lone Star Rattlesnake Days. Send us a message, and we'll see where we can place it. Have you come out, and if you want to volunteer to help, the more the merrier. We're always looking for people to help out in conservation efforts.
No, I'm pretty far away from you guys. I mean, it's not something that I can likely get to, but are there ways that people around the country can help you guys without necessarily attending?
Yeah, we are always looking at different ways of kind of reaching out and engaging the public and engaging conservation through outreach. So again, if anybody wants to send us a message and ask what they can do to help, hit us up on Facebook, and we'll be glad to see what we can do. We've got not only just the Lone Star Rattlesnake Days going on, but we've got things going on all throughout the year, and we're always looking for different avenues to get out and engage the public. So that is something I'm sure we can find a place for you.
All right, Lone Star Rattlesnake Days happening March 11th and 12th in Round Rock, Texas. You guys can go to the website Rattlesnake Preservation Trust. Doug Hotle, thank you so much for being here and telling us about this event. It sounds really exciting. I hope it goes really well for you guys.
And thanks again for having me on. We just love to spread the word, and if you guys can come out and see us at this event, that'd be great. If not, look us up on one of our sites and get more information on what we're all about.
That's great. We'll help spread word about it. Thank you so much for talking about it. I hope that I see pictures and stuff from the event here soon.
Oh, definitely. We'll be posting plenty of activity pictures.
Well, that's great. You guys are doing great work, Doug Hotle. Thank you so much. That was Doug Hotle of the Rattlesnake Preservation Trust telling us about Lone Star Rattlesnake Days happening March 11th through 12th, 2017 at Dell Diamonds United Heritage Center in Round Rock, Texas. You can also visit the website, rattlesnakepreservationtrust.org, to find out more about the organization and the event. And you'll also find where you can donate to the cause. Also, please share this video on Facebook, on your timelines and groups, and on your pages, and tell others about the great work that they're doing to change the focus of rattlesnake roundups. Great work they're doing. Thank you for listening to this special edition of the Edgar Ortega Radio Show. I try to bring you conservation efforts for wildlife everywhere. If you enjoy this, please subscribe to my channel on YouTube. Just click on my face when it pops up on the video here to subscribe easily, and or follow this video to my channel and subscribe there. Once again, my name is Edgar Ortega, and thank you for listening to the Edgar Ortega Radio Show.